For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. President Joe Biden says a tentative deal has been reached between railway workers and the industry, averting a Friday strike that could have been devastating to the economy just ahead of the midterm elections. Under the deal, workers will receive 24% raises over 5 years and $5,000 in bonuses. But the sticking issue was no paid sick leave. Railroads have agreed to one paid sick day and easing strict attendance policies. Ron Kamenkow with the Railroad Workers United Union calls the provisions an insult. He spoke to Democracy Now! This morning.
A bit of an insult, one would think. Most workers have 10 to 15 sick days.
Under the agreement, railroad workers will be able to take unpaid days off for doctor's appointments without being penalized. That was another sticking point. Vermont Independent Senator Bernie Sanders railed against penalizing workers for taking time off to see a doctor on the Senate floor yesterday.
What that means is that if you as a worker get sick, if your child gets sick, if your spouse gets sick, and you need to take time off of work, not only will you not get paid, you actually could get fired. And that is precisely what is happening today in the rail industry. How crazy is that?
The tentative agreement goes to union members for a vote. Russian forces blew up a dam in Ukraine, causing flooding and evacuations in Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky's hometown southwest of Dnipro. Zelensky calls it an attempt to flood the city. 8 cruise missiles hit a water pumping station there. In a video address, he called it a vile Russian act. The strike on a dam comes after Ukrainian soldiers recaptured nearly all of the Kharkiv region. Now stories are surfacing of tortures and imprisonment of residents during Russia's occupation. Zelensky also met with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen today, where she pledged reconstruction funding. Meanwhile, Russia's President Vladimir Putin is meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping today and leaders from India and Central Asian nations at Uzbekistan for a summit on a security group seen by Beijing and Moscow as a counterweight to U.S. influence. A Russian official said Putin and Xi were due to hold one-on-one meetings and discuss Ukraine at the meeting of the 8-nation Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Rare good news from the World Health Organization on the COVID-19 pandemic. The head of the WHO says the number of COVID-19 deaths last week was the lowest reported number in the pandemic, marking what could be a turning point in the years-long global outbreak.
We have never been in a better position to end the pandemic. We're not there yet, but the end is in sight.
Amidst a wave of union activity, employers continue to erect major barriers to workers who try to organize a union. A Starbucks barista testified to a House committee about her experience Wednesday. Pamela Estrada has more.
Earlier this week, Starbucks announced new financial savings and student loan repayment tools, but only for U.S. workers who haven't unionized. Michelle Eisen, a barista at the first Starbucks to unionize, the coffee shop in Buffalo, New York, she told the House committee that since the union vote last December, Starbucks has engaged in a series of anti-union actions.
Starbucks has no regard for our legal rights, and they will never stop on their own. In the last year, the union has filed over 350 unfair labor practice charges against Starbucks with the NLRB. The NLRB has so far issued administrative complaints against Starbucks in almost 100 ULPs, alleging over 600 legal violations. Some of these alleged violations affected every Starbucks worker in the country. And Starbucks workers are not alone in this struggle. Workers involved in other large organizing efforts at places such as Amazon, Chipotle, Trader Joe's, and Apple have faced very similar union busting from their companies.
Since last December, more than 200 Starbucks stores have voted to unionize. According to the latest information available, none has yet achieved a contract. Union organizers say Starbucks is dragging its heels. Workers trying to organize at Chipotle and Apple have also faced similar anti-union tactics. Meanwhile, a recent Gallup poll said 71% of Americans approve of labor unions, the highest approval rating since 1965. I'm Pamela Estrada for KPFA.
A House Oversight Subcommittee heard testimony about the fossil fuel industry's attempt to suppress protests by backing anti-protest laws and pursuing legal intimidation known as SLAPP lawsuits yesterday. The strategic lawsuits against public participation have been filed against activists and nonprofits claiming defamation, trespass, and even racketeering to silence them and stop their opposition to fossil fuel pipelines and other projects that contribute to climate change. The hearing comes as a new report from Earth Rights International charges the fossil fuel industry with targeting 152 climate justice activists with SLAPP lawsuits in an effort to stop them from organizing against oil, gas, and coal extraction. I'm Christina Onnested, reporting for Pacifica Radio.